Good morning, everyone. We want to thank you for coming out today to our PulsePoint launch here in Marin County. My name is Bill Tyler. I'm the fire chief with the Novato Fire Protection District. I'm also the president of the Marin County Fire Chiefs Association. The Marin County Fire Chiefs Association is dedicated to promoting progressive leadership. We also provide prevention, training, standards, and information and education related to the public. And so we've identified a problem that is not only countywide, but Bay Area and statewide. And that is, despite the fact that we have some of the most progressive and best fire and emergency response agencies here in Marin and an excellent 911 dispatch system, there's still a delay from the time that someone has a cardiac arrest until the time that we can have our resources on scene to help them. According to the American Heart Association, each minute that CPR and defibrillation is not given to a cardiac patient, their chances decrease by 7 to 10% of survival. So when departments have this impeccable response record and we can save lives and seconds save lives, when it takes us 8 minutes to be able to respond, there's a gap from the time that someone goes down. There's a break in the chain of survival to help those people. And so the solution is PulsePoint. This app can save lives, and it will save lives here in Marin County. The app is available both in iOS and Android devices. What PulsePoint Respond does with your smartphone is it takes those cardiac emergencies to those people that register on the app, and it gives you real-time dispatch information. So at the same time that the firefighters and the paramedics are receiving information about a cardiac arrest, a bystander that's in close proximity can also get that same alert. And so they may be in very close proximity to where that call is. The app knows where the person that registered is, it knows where the cardiac arrest is, and it knows where the closest automatic external defibrillator is. And it puts those things together and can bring a person to start CPR and become that link in that chain of survival while the fire department responds for some additional advanced life support care. So at this point, I'd like to stop and introduce Richard Price. Richard is the president and founder of PulsePoint. Richard?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Good morning. It seems like just yesterday that I was sitting in a restaurant having lunch, and I heard a siren in the distance. And as I sat there eating, that siren got louder and closer. And before too long, I could see the ambulance. And to my surprise, it pulled into the driveway, stopped right in front of the restaurant where I was eating. And I soon found out that right next door, just on the other side of the wall of where I was sitting, somebody was unconscious, unresponsive. They were probably only 10 or 15 feet away from me. And I was the fire chief in that community. I was trained in CPR. I had an AED in my vehicle. And the entire time where I was listening to that siren and that crew was making their way to the scene, I could have made a significant difference, most likely in the outcome of that. So it was pretty shocking as a fire chief and really working hard on getting the community trained in CPR and placing AEDs in public places and doing all the things that I thought that I should be doing. But I was really surprised to see that I could be so close and unaware that somebody was in such great need. And although I didn't have a radio, I had my phone. And that was the original idea for the app, that, we know in the 911 center the location of that cardiac arrest. We notified our crews by radio that they were needed and that they should respond. And could we take a phone that knows its location and make that connection with the cardiac arrest is here, somebody who's trained in CPR and is willing to help if they're nearby, and could we make that connection? And we worked over the next couple of years to build that app and to test that app inside of a fire department That fire department, San Ramon Valley Fire Department, ultimately created the foundation, the PulsePoint Foundation, that I lead today to help other agencies take what we learned and take what was accomplished there and get it into other communities. So it's extremely satisfying, extremely exciting to be here today, seeing Marin County doing this. All the Bay Area, pretty much all the communities in the Bay Area now, almost 80% of California and much of the country now has PulsePoint available. So congratulations to everybody who made this possible. It's just a real honor and privilege to be here today. And it's my privilege to introduce to you Chief Mark Brown. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mark Brown. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief for the Marin County Fire Department. And really want to talk about how PulsePoint can improve the situational awareness of our community. And it's going to improve it in two ways. We've already talked about the CPR and the cardiac arrest alerts. But we also want to talk about just your awareness of what's going on in your environment around you. As was mentioned, maybe you hear sirens driving down the street, and you can look up in your PulsePoint app, and you can see what those sirens are going to. Maybe you see a small column of smoke coming up off of a hillside, and you can look in the PulsePoint app and you can see, okay, well that's a controlled burn, so we're good with that. Or maybe you find out it's a structure fire, or you might learn it's a vegetation fire. And that really ties into the awareness that we're trying to create within our communities about vegetation fires. And you can sign up for alerts. It simply goes, you go into your app, hit notifications, and say that you want to be notified of a vegetation fire. You literally will get notified of that vegetation fire at the same time the fire station's bells are going off for them to go to a fire. So you're an engaged community member. You know it's a red flag day because you pay attention to that. And then you get a notification through PulsePoint. You go, wow, there's a wildland fire 2 miles from my house. I'm downwind from that wildland fire. And then you go to our alert wildfire cameras and you see a developing column of smoke. And you might decide, I'm not going to go for that hike right now. I'm going to grab my go bag. I'm going to put my go bag next to my front door. And you know what? My neighbor has access and functional needs. Maybe I can help that neighbor. And then you get our Alert Marin notification telling you to evacuate. Now you simply grab your go bag, put it in your car, you are ready. You can go help your neighbor. You guys start evacuating. That's what we are really trying to strive to create a engaged community. And that would be what our engaged community members could do. It's going to save lives. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I just cannot stress the importance of the entire Bay Area, much and most of California being involved. So if you have your PulsePoint app and you just simply hit your location services on it, wherever you go, you're going to get these same services. And I would like to introduce Dr. Matt Willis from the County Public Health Office, and he's going to discuss the importance of citizen bystander CPR.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So PulsePoint is public health. It is public health in action because it invites all of us into a position of shared responsibility for our collective well-being. In that sense, it's similar to a lot of the work we're doing to bring community into greater engagement in all forms of emergency and disaster response here in Marin. 5 minutes. That's what we need. We need your help bridging us 5 minutes. It takes about that long on average. There's some longer, some shorter, for the ambulance crew to arrive at a scene. As a physician, I know that when we have an expression in the emergency department, time is myocardium. Myocardium, that's the word for the heart muscle, right? Time is so important. If someone's heart stops, the clock starts there, and you might have 5 minutes where you might be able to bring that person back. After that, it's very unlikely that person will ever survive. And it's also not rocket science, right? The blood needs to continue to move. So one of the most important things about PulsePoint for me as a public health officer is the way it might catalyze interest in learning CPR in this community. When we were younger, you might have gone CPR training where you had to try and remember the number of beats before you had to take a breath. We overcomplicated things. It's incredibly simple, actually. Hands-only CPR. You get, staying alive, right? That's the beat. You push on the chest, and you keep that heart, that blood flowing. until the ambulance arrives, right? The key is knowing where that person might be when they need that kind of support. So we want to make sure that through PulsePoint, people are actually notified when there's a cardiac arrest, but also making sure that people across the community actually acquire that skill of CPR that can save a life. In the United States last year, 350,000 cardiac arrests. Only 12% of people survived. And it's partly because they're there waiting for an ambulance crew to arrive. We can do a lot better. In Marin County, we had 418 cardiac arrests last year, and those 70 events, there was a bystander there to start CPR, right? 70 out of over 400. Excellent sign that we already have a community that is interested and engaged, that many bystanders stood forward, but we know we can do a lot better through PulsePoint. So please, we're grateful that you're interested in PulsePoint. I'm grateful as a public health officer that we're going to see more lives saved through this tool and increase the health of this community, which is already such a healthy community. And with that, I'm going to introduce Al and Trish Hart from Fairfax. Al is a living example of the value of PulsePoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's truly an honor to be here today. I just can't even imagine what my life would have been if it wasn't for PulsePoint and the first responders. It's truly, some of you already know my story, and those that don't, I'm going to share, and I'm sorry for those that have already heard it before, but it really is, it's an incredible chain of events, and it's really truly about the first responders and people stopping and caring and trying to do the right thing. Both my wife and I are, avid triathletes, and we've done multiple Ironman, and actually we were out training for an Ironman that day. And we did a mile swim, and then went out on a 50-mile bike ride, and I was out for a run at the end, and I was coming back. And during the day, I just thought, it was just a bad day of training, but little did I know there was actually something else going on. And so I just said, suck it up, Buttercup, and and put on your big pants and go, Al, just go, So I just kept on running, and then as I started the run back, just finishing up, I collapsed. And I'm thankfully, I have guardian angels, and two of them are here today. And they were the first responders, and if it wasn't for them, I know I wouldn't be here. It really is an important thing that people learn CPR, and don't just take it for granted. If somebody's in need, step up, help them out, call 911, and thankfully they both knew CPR, and they triggered the PulsePoint app. When it happened, I had no idea there was even such a thing as PulsePoint, but thank God there is. And I'm just so thankful. And how many times do you ever get to say, you hear the stories of people saying, I have guardian angels, yeah. Truly, I had several guardian angels that day, and it just wasn't my time to go. And I think the reason is to get out and tell the story now. Let people know you can get involved. Don't be a part of the community. Get the app. Get CPR trained. Make sure that you get that word out to your neighbors, and just keep on telling people we can help each other, especially in this day and age with all this hate and the politics and all the crap that's going on in the world right now. This is something positive we can do, and it's the best thing you can do for your own community and your loved ones. And I'm just so thankful. Thank you.
Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. This day is so special because what a perfect day to celebrate life, love, and the launch of this life-saving app. So amazing. I couldn't have thought of a perfect day. Tomorrow will be 8 months since Al's heart stopped. 8 months ago tomorrow. And he's alive because of the quick action of caring people and the PulsePoint app. He mentioned that we were running and training, and of course I was out there as well, and so he was down and I came across him, And nobody ever wants to find their loved one on the ground unconscious. And in those moments, Juliana, who had called 911, mentioned something to me about triggering a PulsePoint app. Well, I had no idea what that was. I had never heard of it. But that app bought Al the time he needed before the paramedics arrived. It triggered the notification to the lifeguards that were nearby. They came running up with AEDs and were able to shock Al's heart. And because of that, he's standing here with you. Because of that, I have a Valentine today. So just think about, every day all around us are potential lifesavers. Every one of us is a potential lifesaver. It only takes two things. You need to get CPR certified, and you need to get the app. That's it. It's so simple. So with that, I'm just going to tell everybody to make sure you get your CPR certification, hug your loved ones, and download that app. Thank you.
Thank you, Al and Trish, for sharing your story with us. Now I'd like to introduce 4th District Supervisor Dennis Fredonia.
Thank you so much. I'm Dennis Fredonia. I'm Vice President of the Board of Supervisors, and I'm also the Disaster Council Chair. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks to all of you who have made this app possible. Mobile devices have transformed the way we live, work, and play, and PulsePoint is a proven example of how wireless technology can bring our communities together and save lives. I want to thank the Marin County Fire Chiefs Association for working collaboratively to bring this life-saving technology to everyone in Marin County. I want to recognize the collaborative effort of all our fire agencies working together because they're making Marin safer by doing so. PulsePoint will improve response times, the efficiency and the effectiveness of how we serve our communities. I'd like to call on all our residents to make sure they download the app, they stay informed of incidents in our community, and be willing to help when help is needed. Our residents' appetite for information is growing, and now we have an app for that. So thank you so much. I'm going to give the mic back to Bill.
Well, here it is, folks. This is the call to action. Sudden cardiac arrest can happen to anyone at any time. But PulsePoint empowers CPR-trained citizens to help improve patient outcomes and save lives by reducing that time from that someone collapses and then CPR can be performed to defibrillation. And when citizens are more aware and engaged with the health of their community, they become better partners with our agency and a stronger link to our response efforts. And informed communities, PulsePoint allows us to keep informed on emergency activity in real time. Citizens we protect will use this information on a daily basis to know when there's an accident in their commute or if that smoke that they smell is from an approaching wildfire. And they'll share the routine usefulness of the app with neighbors and family and friends, and in turn, they'll help us build an engaged and reliable network of CPR-trained individuals. Thank you for listening, and go get the app and save a life. Thank you. So we have some time for any questions if there's members of the media or the public that have any interest in this. Yes?
So if I fall down and I have the app on my phone and I have only one moment to push a button, will it help me? Can I use it as a victim if I'm awake? I don't know if you collapse.
So if you were to have a medical alert tag and press that button because you collapse, that will send a signal to have crews respond, and that information would be shared with the app. The app is not intended to notify the fire department. It's intended to notify the public that there's an incident that can help save your life. All right, if there's no, another question?
Well, I'm very impressed with the app. I downloaded it
So let me turn this over to Rich to talk about the expanding uses of the app.
Well, thanks for your kind words about the app. One of the things that you'll learn as you start to use the app is you can pay attention to resources. As that call goes out and you're notified, you're going to see that there's units en route. So you're going to see the size of the complement that's being sent, and you'll see those units are green because they're en route, and they'll turn red when they arrive. So you're seeing the status of the units. And then if you start seeing units go white, they're starting to be cleared from the incident. So it's de-escalating. If the incident is growing, you'll see more units attached. We'll show that it's gone to a second alarm, it's gone to a third alarm. So one of the keys of PulsePoint, because it's automated, it doesn't have somebody immediately there that knows what's happening at the incident, because this is 5, 10, 15 minutes into the incident, it's giving you immediate indication. So with just a little bit of practice, you're going to be able to see, is it getting bigger? Is it getting smaller? How fast is it escalating? And then the agencies will come behind PulsePoint with Nixle, the local app that's here that they're more familiar with. So you're going to have augmented information, but that can take half an hour, 45 minutes, get a PIO on scene. So just with a little bit of practice in the app, you'll see that it's very helpful to know this is getting worse, this is getting better, and it's just that early notification before things get organized and you start having human involvement that's helping you know more about it. Thank you.
And I would like to follow up on that. And Richard talked about Nixle, following Facebook, following Twitter. But let me stress the importance of registering for Alert Marin. PulsePoint is going to provide information. Alert Marin is action. If you receive anything from us from Alert Marin, we're directing you to take action. And so that's the handoff we see, information to action between PulsePoint and Alert Marin.
We want to thank everyone, all of the different agencies that have come today, our speakers, and Rich for this app. Alan, Trish, thank you again for sharing your story. We want you to get the app. We want you to save a life. Thank you.